Okay, we're back with our guest, Mr. Charles LaRue. Charles, I want to thank you very much for coming over today.
You're certainly welcome.
You have a background in the aerospace industry, so that doesn't really explain your proficiency and indeed your tremendous knowledge of economics and the creation of money. How did you achieve this knowledge? How did you acquire it?
Oh, it's just through reading and studying, Michael. I guess I kind of have an inventor's mind, which says, don't take anything for granted, because once you do, or make assumptions, your creativity has to start from there.
Right.
And you miss all the paths that you could have taken if you'd started a little earlier and questioned some earlier assumptions.
Yes.
And so my way of proceeding is always to question basics. And whenever I have something I don't understand, I realize I don't understand the basics. And so it's taken me about 20 years to come up with a real understanding through reading.
I know you've been working on this a long time. Okay, we promised to move the fog out, right?
Okay.
So what is the first thing that we need to understand about money? I guess you're going to use the chart. Huh?
We will, but first of all, let's make sure that we understand that money is really simple if you break it down into its basics and take it one step at a time. The best way to do this is to give a real-life example of how to use money to create money in a carpool situation.
A carpool situation.
Right. Let's say people out there want to do a carpool. This happened to us. We wanted to commute from Culver City to Point Mugu, but we all had different schedules. Some could show up Monday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, and Mondays and Fridays, and some showed up late, some showed every day. It became almost impossible to determine whose turn it was to drive. One of our engineers then decided to introduce monopoly money, and that solved the whole problem. And that's what you can do. Issue everybody, let's say, 6 or 10 monopoly dollars. Say there are 4 people in a carpool. Issue them all $6. Then what you do is you charge maybe $2 or $3 for a ride to be shared among the passengers. When you run out of money, it's your turn to drive.
Right.
It's that simple.
Okay.
And this eliminates the whole problem of barter, because that's what you're trying to do when you're exchanging rides. You're trying to barter. A very difficult system. And so this tells us what money is really for.
It facilitates the barter system, basically.
It facilitates the exchange of valuable goods and services. The money itself does not have to be valuable, because it only acts as a tally to make sure that there's a fair exchange of goods and services.
Right. As long as there's an agreement about it. That's
right.
all
And the amount of money is important too.
The money supply. The
money
amount.
supply. For instance, if you issued everybody $6, that seemed to work out fine and charged $2 or $3. It's a matter of common sense. But what if we had issued everybody, say, $100? What would happen then is a person could ride in a carpool for maybe 50 days in a row without ever driving. That's too much. Okay, that's really too much money in the system. On the other hand, let's say we had too little money. We issued everybody only $3, and it cost $3 for one ride. So if your car was in the shop for 2 days, you couldn't. In other words, there's no way to accumulate savings. There's not enough money. So this tells us the second important thing about money, that there should be enough money in circulation to allow people to put some aside for savings for a rainy day, but not so much that it will encourage reckless spending and cause prices to shoot up. In any economy, the prices tend to go upward or downward depending on the money supply in order to adjust for the shortage or surplus of money. I suppose in the carpool example, if we had asked for if we'd given everybody $100, the driver would have started asking for maybe $20 or $30. So you see, these things tend to adjust.
Okay, so how does that relate to the system of money that we're using now, in the sense that what you've just described sounds like a very equitable and fair situation? But I know for a fact that we don't have that kind of situation at the moment.
Well, the reason we don't have it is because the money supply has never been regulated properly. It's Congress's job to do that.
According to the Constitution.
Yes, it says right in the Constitution, Article 1, Congress shall have the power to coin money and regulate the value thereof. Too much money is harmful, too little money is harmful. Just the right amount of money is perfect.
Yes.
Now, for years, government used to introduce money into the system by purchasing gold and silver from miners at a discount.
Yes.
It would put the gold and silver into the mint. And then whenever the government wanted to, it could take an ounce of silver and stamp it into a silver dollar. Now, they only paid 50 cents an ounce, but they stamped a dollar coin. This gave the government profit, so it didn't have to collect taxes.
Yes.
They could also issue a silver certificate and leave the money in the mint.
Silver certificate?
A silver certificate said right on it that there existed in the United States Mint 1 ounce of silver.
Okay.
So the certificate circulated, or the silver piece would circulate. Either one, it didn't matter.
Right.
But money would constantly flow out. And once it was out there, it would stay there. It wasn't owed to anybody. It didn't have to come back. And it served a function of the same thing we did with the carpool. It facilitated the exchange of goods and services.
Right.
It was a good system because although money could increase as silver was mined, it couldn't increase very quickly, and so prices tended to remain stable.
And the government had a constant source of income and didn't have to tax.
That's right.
All right, so what changed? I mean, we developed the most prosperous economy in the world using this system.
Yes, we did. It was a very stable economy, and the silver dollars were valued all over the world, and it was the best currency in the whole world because it was honest currency.
Up here you have the debt money system.
Okay, now let's talk about another money system, okay? Let's go back to our carpool example. But instead of issuing everybody $6, let's say we do the way the bankers do. We lend everybody $6. Let's say we have Ted and Charles and Jim and Joe in the carpool.
So before we were just giving it to them.
You just gave it to them.
Now we're lending it to them.
Yes. We're going to say, as a banker does.
You're the bank.
I'm a bank.
All right.
Money is a very valuable commodity. I don't give it away. I create it out of nothing, but it's still valuable.
Yeah.
Okay.
It costs you about 2 cents a bill.
Yeah, it doesn't cost me anything.
Right.
But what I do is I convince people that's valuable. The money itself is valuable. Not the goods and services being exchanged, but the money. Okay. So I lend it out, and of course I want collateral. So I take the pink slip on their cars. Yeah, typical banker trick. Okay, so now a year later, I generated $24, okay? A year later, each person owes me at 10% $6.60.
10% interest?
10% interest.
So you're not only making them pay back a loan.
Oh, yes, you have to.
You're also charging them 10% interest on the loan.
Of course, yes. I'm providing a valuable service, you see. I'm creating money. Right. Okay, so now the economy owes me $24 plus $2.40 in interest. It owes me $26.40. Michael, what's wrong with this picture?
Charles, there's not enough money out there to pay that.
That's right. There is not enough money to pay back the principal and the interest. And that is the curse of the debt money system. Would you like to hear what Thomas...
There's never enough money in circulation to pay the principal and the interest.
That's right. Let me tell you what Thomas Jefferson had to say about this.
That's a wonderful business, I must say.
It is. Oh, well, okay, the banks, it's very profitable for the banks, of course. But Jefferson said, the eyes of our citizens are not sufficiently open to the true cause of our distress. They ascribe them to anything but their true cause, the banking system, which, if it could do good in any form, is yet so certain of leading to abuse as to be utterly incompatible with the public safety and prosperity. I sincerely believe that banking establishments are more dangerous than standing armies.
Yes.
He was against the debt money system when it was first instituted.
Incompatible with the public good.
Yes, it is. Let's show you how I, as a banker now, because there's not enough money to pay it off, I have three options, several options anyway. The first option is that I can foreclose on anybody that doesn't have the $6.60 and take their car.
You got their pink slip.
Right, I have the pink slip. But a second option, which is better, is to either just charge them interest only.
Interest only.
That means they have to pay me 60 cents a year, so I make $2.40 a year. Okay? But the debt remains the same. They still owe $6.
Right.
What this will do, of course, is to pull money out of circulation. And we'll get into that situation where there's not enough money circulating because it's being used up. It's being taken out of circulation by the banks. We have a very similar situation today.
The money supply is drying up.
That's just like it is happening today. And we'll get to the reasons for that.
Most people think that the reason that we're having an economic problem is something to do with inflation or, they never would suspect that it's just the fact that all the money is, going to the bank?
It's going back into the banks as interest. Money is being taken out of circulation faster than it's being put in circulation. It's coming out as interest.
Yes.
And until the banks are able to find some way of putting it to circulation, it will continue this way. The second option I, as a banker, would have is to let the debt compound. In other words, Ted and Charles and Jim and Joe can go their merry way and never pay any interest or principal or anything else and just use the money, valuable as it is, as an exchange of goods. But I'm keeping a track here. How much do you think $24 would compound to after 30 years?
Well, I can see it's $418.
Isn't that amazing?
And you've got less than $24 to pay that.
That's right. So you can see the evils from the banker's point of view, the miracle of compound interest.
That's astonishing.
And evil for society.
And that would explain the $4 trillion debt.
Of course it would.
It's just a concept of money, really, isn't it?
Yes.
It's not real money. It's just the idea that you now owe this staggering amount, and
it's not a debt.
there isn't even that much property in this country to pay.
No, there isn't.
You couldn't pay that debt off if you wanted to.
Let's go into how money is really put into circulation today. What I gave you there is essentially the operation, but there are 5 players in this game. There's Congress, the United States Treasury, the Federal Reserve Bank.
Can we come close in on this, please? Because this is fascinating. Let's really get in so we can, I hope we can read this. All right, go ahead.
Okay, we have Congress, the United States Treasury, the Federal Reserve Bank, the member banks, and the people.
Right.
And here's how the scheme works. The Congress has the idea that it cannot create money. It must borrow it.
Now, this is totally against the Constitution.
Well, the Constitution says that Congress shall create money. Any sovereign nation has the ability to create money.
And that has never been amended.
No, of course not.
And you can only change the Constitution with an amendment.
That's right.
Right, and they pass some law.
It's the Federal Reserve Act.